We've all seen the reality TV shows, the amazing messes that are out there. How do you help a hoarder clean their house? So I promised you that you'd get to have a specialist today, and I've got my friend Marla D with me. Welcome, Marla.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Marla is this amazing person that I found who helps people to organize their space, really. And Marla, you were on my show, the podcast, Live on Purpose Radio. Mm-hmm. And I just remember the feeling when you said, imagine, Dr. Paul, that you are surrounded only by the things that you use
and that you
love. And I'm like, okay, you got me. You got me. And you've devised some tools and strategies for people to use to organize their space. Mm-hmm. So you were obviously the person that I was going to call for this particular question. Some of our subscribers have asked, how do I help a hoarder clean their house? Yeah. I'm just going to throw it out to you and let you respond however you would like.
Well, and you realize that since I've been what's called a professional organizer for 18 years, that means I have been in thousands of homes and offices.
Yeah.
Thousands. So I like to tell my audiences all the time when I speak, I have seen it all, Paul. There is nothing that would scare me. And I've seen the chronic disorganization, and I've seen the hoarders, and I've seen the pain. So I was really tickled to come and talk here today about, how can I help a hoarder clean out that house?
Yeah.
Because it's loaded. It's a loaded issue. So you want me to dive in?
Well, it is. Can I tell them what you told me on the phone?
Please.
You can't!
You can't! Don't go there!
So can I just introduce this with a little bit of psychology? Please. Hoarding. Now, if you found this video, you were searching for this or somebody shared it with you. This word hoarding is such a complex constellation of behaviors and emotions and manifestations. It is not a simple thing. No. But there's a range too, and I think you're going to help us to
talk about that.
Understand that. This is something that requires a high level of specialized intervention and training and experience. I'm a clinical psychologist. You're a professional organizer.
Yeah.
Neither of us
are trained to do that.
Are certified professionals to deal with hoarding the way we typically think about it. But having said that, I think that there are some principles that are important to acknowledge and notice. And so
there truly are. And I like to tell people, to make it easy to understand, that if you needed heart surgery, you wouldn't go to a dentist. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
So it is an area of special need. However, just to try and help that everyday person who's struggling, let's give you some ideas on what you can and can't do.
Yeah, excellent.
So first of all, don't go in and try and clean out the house. I see this all the time. They get together this big group, right?
We're going to do an intervention.
We're going to do an intervention. We're going to go in there and get all that stuff out of there. And that will do more harm than good. I promise it will. It would be like sending a person through massive surgery on multiple parts of their body all at the same time. So their physical body and their emotional body is connected to all that stuff. And a lot of the times that stuff is their safety. So if you now move all that stuff out of there, you have just created a very scary world for them. And that's why they recreate it, Paul. That's why they then go in and start filling that space back up again. You go in 3 months later and it's in the same condition. So don't do that.
Well, that's frustrating to the person that's intervening too.
It is really frustrating. And so what I also hear a lot is, I live with a quote unquote hoarder, right? Because it's now a catchphrase. It's this thing that everybody uses.
Right.
And so if you live with somebody who really has chronic disorganization going on, one of the things that I like to bring up is that you can assert your own boundaries. You can say to that husband, okay, your stuff is now filling up the garage and the basement. It does not get to come into our bedroom. It does not get to come into the living room. So the common areas, you can have boundaries and say you don't get to take over that space. And you limit them to certain areas. That's completely healthy and appropriate to do.
And it tends to be more effective too.
It's way more effective, yes, because then that person still feels safe. They're not being attacked. right? But the person can continue living with them, because otherwise what happens so often is the person ends up moving out, the partner moves out because they can't handle it.
Right.
So the other thing that you can do, though, is you can get a professional, and the great resource that I wanted to share with all of you out there today that so many people don't know about is the Institute for Challenging Disorganization. It's ICD, and we'll be giving you the website address for that, but it's just challengingdisorganization.org. And on this fabulous website, they will give you all kinds of information and resources, whether you're the person who's struggling, trying to clean up, whether you're the family member, whether you're a friend, whether you're a professional even who's trying to help this individual. It's packed with great information. And one of the pieces that they'll give you, I'm going to share this with the audience, is their clutter hoarding scale. It's a quick reference guide.
Oh, look at that.
Isn't that awesome? They even use colors, and you'll notice that there are actually 5 different levels of clutter and hoarding. And most people just glop all those together. And so by using this little scale, which is free, you can just download it, you can read through this and get a better understanding of what that person is going through and what level they're at. And then it's going to make the cleanup so much easier.
So I think I'm hearing you correctly, Marla. Don't charge
charge
in
anymore.
with the cavalry and start cleaning things up. It's going to do more harm than good.
Yeah.
First of all, we don't have that person's enrollment necessarily at this point.
No, most of the time they don't, but they think that somehow they're helping.
Right, and then they wonder why it goes back to the way that it was. And this causes all kinds of judgment, which makes it worse. It strains relationships, which
it
makes
so
it
does.
worse. There's an anxiety component here. And as you were saying, sometimes these people have created around them these shields of
protection.
stuff. It's like a protection or their safety, their comfort zone. So we don't want to go in and just destroy that. But there are ways to start approaching it that could be helpful. So you've shared this resource, the Institute for Challenging Disorganization.
It's
That's
fantastic.
a heck of a name.
Because here's another fun scenario we get all the time. We get a call from the partner who says, my wife's going to be gone for 2 weeks. I want you to come in and clean it
And
out.
clean the house.
And we don't want to do that. And this brings up another point that I really wanted to mention to each of you out there. How would you feel if somebody just showed up at your front door of your house and went inside and started moving your stuff around and cleaning it out and cleaning it up? How would that make you feel?
Or throwing it away.
Or throwing it away. So as a professional organizer, I also train organizers who are launching their own business. I've done that for 14 years now. And the hardest thing for me to teach them is that they're not fixing that person. They're not going in there and moving their stuff around because right now it's broken and I need to fix it. And so I oftentimes ask them, how would you feel about another professional organizer, myself for example, coming into your home, walking around, seeing everything and starting to move it and change it? It would be so vulnerable and so loaded.
Right.
I'm actually the only organizer that I know that intentionally hires other organizers to come into my home and my office. I've done this for 17 years now. I've had hundreds of them come in so that I can experience what that feels like.
Oh, that's
So
brilliant.
before you march in and want to clean up somebody else's space, just ask yourself, how would you feel if somebody was doing that to you?
Which doesn't mean you can't help.
It doesn't mean you can't help. And I'll give one tip on that. What you can do, right? We've told them a lot of
Excellent.
people, lots of things they can't do. Start with one area. So have a conversation with that person and say, if we could do one area, what would it be? So would it be the bedroom? Would it be a little sitting area? Would it be a part of the kitchen? You know, would it be their pantry? So if they're on board, yes, you really can go in and work alongside them if you keep it super simple. Okay, and you use the guidelines that you're going to get from the ICD. Another thing that you can do is I wrote a sweet little ebook. Is it okay if I bring that up?
Oh, please, yes.
It's called The Art of Letting Go.
I love it.
And ART stands for acceptance, release, and trust. But the reason I love this little book, and one of the reasons I wrote it, is because it helps that person kind of come to a place of, yes, I really do want to do something. And then they pick a small project, and then this little book steps you and that person through getting it done.
Yes.
So it gives you this real simple step-by-step guide so that, yes, you can free the top of the dresser. Or, oftentimes it's the floor that gets covered because that's our past and we just start piling stuff down.
Right.
But maybe they just want that little area that they can sit in. And I'd love here to just share a little story. The last hoarder that I did work with, we got to go in and help her because it was the wife of a dear friend of mine, and she was getting ready to have major surgery, and she needed to be able to come home and walk through her space. So I met with her, and we chose a part of her living room that she would want to be able to sit, and we cleared that area, and we cleared the kitchen so that she could go back and forth, right, between those two. And then we did also get to do the hallway down to her bedroom, but that's as far as we could get. That's as much as she would ever be comfortable with. And then what's kind of sad is she had the surgery and she actually died in the process of the surgery. But the family was so grateful that we had done what we had done.
That you had made that progress.
That we'd made that progress, and that honestly the last 3 months of her life were meaningful. She was getting to share some of her stories and her history with another human being. And so you can also help by being a friend, by being their witness, by cheering for them, right?
Yes.
Don't beat them up. Don't be negative like I'm doing to you. But applaud them, encourage them, involve them in what is it that they really want. Help them create a vision for what it is they want.
Yes. And your book is so helpful along
Yes.
those lines because it gives really the greater perspective that it's not about a mess
No.
in your loved one's home. That's not what we're talking about here. This is a much more complicated and multifaceted kind of an issue. And there are stories too. And I remember that's
Great
one of the things
stories.
that you helped me to understand, Marla, is that our stuff carries stories.
Yeah.
And as we
Our
connect
life.
to those stories, that's part of what the art of letting go is.
Yes.
You'll find some other really great stuff on Marta's website, I'm just saying. We'll keep some links in the description down below so you can check there for that.
Wonderful.
Marla D, isn't she amazing? And she's helped us to understand this problem a little bit better. Probably there's some things that we can all do.